You were sweating for no reason.
He had a raggedy jacket.
All right, folks, so we're same as always. We're going to start with our check-in. So thinking about the last 24 hours, have the decisions you've made led you to greater success and happiness, or have they hindered your homeostasis? So we can think a little about your organization. You had a long weekend. Did you, during that time, get yourself all ready? Did you do all the assignments that were due? Did you go back and maybe correct some tests that you didn't have a score on, you didn't like? When you woke up this morning, did you have everything you needed to go, ready and set? And how about your sleep? Did you get enough sleep last night? Did you wake up refreshed, renewed, invigorated? Or did the 3-day weekend allow you to lapse into some unhealthier behaviors where you're staying up really late and then waking up really late and having your day, habit set off? How about your hygiene? Orange shoulder. How about your hygiene? Are you free of, bacterial, viral, pollution invasions, both inside and outside your body? And how about your relationships? Have you been sweet, kind, adorable, loving, generous? Or have you made other people's lives less satisfying, therefore returning to you later on with some angst of them? And what about your metabolism? Have you chosen nutritious foods that have nourished your body and brain and had everything working smoothly? Or did you maybe choose foods that made you sleepy, tired, and unsatisfied, creating the downward spiral of sugar eating and whatnot? And as always, for your overall mood, coming up with some clever thing that expresses who and what you are in the moment. Today I'm a fresh apple, or today I am some moldy bread, right? So thinking about something that captures who and what you are, as always, averaging it up. And in our last moment of check-in, I want to talk about something I had a discussion with Ms. Barrows this morning. A lot of students have been emailing me coming after school asking for extra credit and or makeup work. And I'm not really in the business of making up new assignments for people to do who didn't do their original assignments. But I like what she's been doing with the whole you can go to a debate. So if you go to the debate, you participate in 4 sessions. If it's one afternoon, a Friday, or a Saturday. You can also use that in my class as credit. You can't double dip though. You can't go to one and then use it for both her and me. And since she's there, she'll keep notes of who does what. Yeah.
What if you attempt grade maybe not in her class?
When you go, she'll still take attendance and send that to me. So I'll know who goes and when. Yeah, so for folks who are, looking to make their lives a little bit better on paper with their GPA, that's an option for you. In addition, of course, to changing your ill behaviors and doing better next time. All right, let's move on. So it's the usual note-taking explosion. So we'll start off with a little bit of notes, then we'll do an activity today. Today will be one of those days where I'm talking at you for 90 minutes. All right, so here it is. It's Q1, week 6. We are officially 50% done with this first quarter. And today is October 13th. We're also 50% through the month of October. And today the students are going to be able to evaluate species classification. Yes? All right, so generally speaking, about every day, 3 to 4 students have to leave class the day to get their binder. And given the number of students in that class, that's actually about 10% of the students. Or about, it's like 15%. Way too high, folks, right? You should be grabbing everything you need at the beginning of the day for your first half of the day, and then at lunch transitioning to the second half, right? Because then you've missed an entire section, such as what you could have done for extra credit. All right, so, and species was our last vocab word in chapter 2. It was the last thing we did the day we did the microbial resistance graph. And this whole next 2 weeks, chapter 3, is just about expanding on this idea of species and how to group and classify species. So we can start off with the question. When you gotta clean your room, what do you do? What's one of the first steps you make? Please. All right, so some students do it geographically, right? They start with one area of the room kind of cleaning as they go. What's another way you could get started? You know, we go in your room, there's like piles of different kinds of things, yeah. All right, so you can think about a way to file it, right? Like, I'm going to put these things here and those things there. And what might be the kind of things that you are putting in certain places? Just thinking about your dirty bedroom. We've all had dirty bedrooms before. Maybe some of you do right this moment.
Yeah.
Things that might be on the bed, under the bed, on the floor, on your bureau.
Dirty laundry.
All right, laundry, right? Clothing could be something.
Water bottles.
All right, perhaps empty water, soda bottles, food containers, right? So, are you going to take all the dirty laundry and all the food containers and put them in the exact same place? Great. We got to classify those things, right? So we're going to take the dirty laundry, we're going to separate it. Some of it's going to go to the wash. Some of it might pass the sniff check and maybe you'll rewear it. Some of it, you know, might be things that you haven't even taken the tags off yet. You never know. Same thing with the food containers. What's going to happen with those, with the food containers? Some of them will be what?
Recycle.
Some of them will be recycled. Some of them will be trash. Some of them might be Tupperware that you reuse. Right? So the way we clean is we organize, we sort things and group them. Alright, hang on. You guys are blue. Alright, so Coco, if you can start us off.
Shut up.
Oh, it's you.
Me?
Alright, so if you could kindly read our quote of the day.
The chicken's and eggs way of making another egg.
Alright, and what is this a play on? What other familiar expression has a similar meaning to it? Yeah, right, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Right, so,
Right?
yeah. So you can think about this idea, right, that as an organism, as an individual, what is one of our primary goals? All right, for one thing, is to survive, right? So if we survive, if we've grown up, we've done all the right things, what's like maybe the next big hurdle?
Reproduce?
To reproduce, right? So we are simply a way of creating the next generation. We are the workers of the offspring. And he's just doing a play on that there with a chicken is an egg's way of making another egg. All right, now as reference to the homework, let's have a little quick discussion about it. So all students, of course, will do the first moon there. They're going to read the 5 Kingdoms essay. One of the things you'll note, this is different than today's notes. Our textbook is so old that they've reclassified these things now. There are now 6 kingdoms. So that's part of what we'll be looking at over the next couple of weeks is how classification changes over time. And you guys are going to be comparing prokaryotic organisms to specifically protists. Indeed. You're going to do great today. So what's a really quick, convenient, easy way to compare two things? Instead of writing a paragraph, what could you do? A little trick. If I were to put this, what would I put next to it?
Compare another circle.
Yeah, right? Do folks know this trick, the Venn diagram? Yeah, right? So you could do your prokaryotes here and your protists there. What goes in the middle? The things that are the same, and then on the sides, obviously, the things that are special to each, right? So I recommend, although you can write a paragraph, I recommend trying out a Venn diagram for this. Honors folks, you're also, from the same reading, going to do the same kind of comparison with plants and fungi. So everyone's going to compare prokaryotes and protists, and then our honors group will do plantae and fungi as well. All right, that's all I've got to say about this. All right, so we're about to move on, and as always, the homework is written over at the board if folks missed it. Yeah, everyone's ready. All right, so our first word of the day under our notes for classification is ancestry. And we've been throwing this word around, common ancestor, or this expression common ancestor, a lot, and it's time to start putting some more solid vocab behind it. So this idea of ancestry means you have a lineage, means there's a line in the family tree connecting you to another organism. And we say common ancestor, just as like a cousin or an uncle is common to you in your family, but they're not the person you were born from and you didn't give birth to them, they are just related. One of the questions that was asked in the last chapter was, how is it we came from chimps? And that's not really the language biologists use. We're not saying that there was a chimpanzee and it gave birth to a Homo sapien and then Homo sapiens started reproducing from there on. It's that we're part of the same group, the same tree, but like a cousin or an uncle, not a direct descendant, just grouped in the same family. All right, can you hear the internet cutting out? The music keeps going. All right, and then all of this has to do with this industry ties into biological classification. And obviously we have the prefix bio, we know we're talking about life, right? So this is the way we categorize, classify, group life. The way we file things away, like we talked about before with our clothes or our trash in our bedroom. You'll also see this written, sometimes called scientific classification. Our textbook uses both interchangeably, as does the MCAS, so it's good to just have them both up there. And this is just that method which biologists group and categorize species. It's the way we look at things and talk about how they're the same, how they're different. A lot of what we've been doing already in our discussions, particularly in the last chapter. For example, we had done cats versus dogs. And what group do cats and dogs both belong to? What is something you could say that they are both the same of?
Mammals.
Are they both quadrupeds? They're both animals. Because they are both animals that produce milk.
He said mammals.
Oh, you did say mammals. Oh, you said mammals. Thanks, Ira. Yeah, right, so they are mammals, right? They give birth to live young. So those are very specific categories. Whereas our dogs are canines and our cats are felines. What about their eating style? What are they both? Since they don't eat plants, they eat the flesh of other creatures. What do we call them? They're both carnivores, right? So that's another way they're classified. Both cats and dogs are classified as carnivores, as meat eaters. And these classifications allow people from different countries to be speaking about the same thing. All right, so let's move on. And there's also this idea of hierarchy. And this is a word you guys are familiar with from your humanities classes over the years, from history and geography and social studies. What is a hierarchy? Thinking about like any country and its governmental system.
Monarch.
Oh yeah, do you think of monarchy as part of a hierarchy? Sure, what else, Adam? You would say monarchy as well, right? So in a monarchy, what are we saying? What is the monarch?
The king.
It's the king, right? And what do people have to do if the king tells them to do something?
They don't do it.
They just have to do it, right? The king is the highest part of the hierarchy. And so this is this idea of the sorting of large categories, right? So you say like a kingdom, which is a very generalized category, right? You have lots of people in your kingdom, versus something very small or more specific, like the individual in their role. Let's play this game with the school system, for example. What is the hierarchy of schools in Massachusetts? Who's the lowest on the hierarchy in terms of like BPS employees?
The janitor.
Well, you could say that, right? But they've got a distinct job in education. They're kind of like a branch. They're more like a common ancestor, we'll say. Who's like the frontline foot soldier dealing with the kids? The teachers, right? Like I'm at the bottom of this hierarchy, right? Like I'm the one who like combats the enemy up front, the wave breaker. Who's in charge of me? The headmaster, right? And then who's in charge of the headmaster? The superintendent. Who does the superintendent answer to? Person who runs the superintendent's the head of the school district. Who runs the whole city?
The mayor.
The mayor. And who tells the mayor what to do?
The president. The governor.
The governor, and then the president, right? So you look at this hierarchy, right? So our federal government makes rules. They tell the states what to do. The governor has to implement those rules. And then, make the mayor do those things. And the mayor tells the superintendent tells the headmaster tells the teacher. Right? So a lot of the instructions I give to you have come, 7 people removed. All right. And what we're going to do now is, on either underneath your notes or on the blank piece of paper, we're still going to use both spaces for something today. We're going to create this grid. And what I'm asking you is make the grid big enough that in addition to the words written in there, you can also fit a couple other words in. So you have your 3 columns, your 6 rows. You're going to have, and there'll be this kind of nomenclature, this kind of word grouping in each box. And then we're going to continue to add to it as we go along. So let's start off with just what's on the board right now so it all makes sense. These two things up here, we're going to integrate into our grid. So for now, in your first column as you build that, you're just going to have life prokaryotes in red and life eukaryote in purple. And of course, as always, you have rulers in your toolboxes on the table, as well as your coloring pencils. Yeah, I'll set you up. All right, folks, so what we're going to look at first, obviously, is biologists, bio, life, right? Our first major grouping is how we sort life, right? And the way biologists see it, there's kind of two major groups of living things. Yes, please. Kind of makes it pop out a little bit more. And I'll give folks another moment to set up before I continue adding things to the boxes. So take your time. So we've got red up here and purple right there. All right, so yeah, we're starting with the two opposite ends of the rainbow, red and purple. So for our Roichi bid. All right, and the stuff that's on this slide will be on the next slide, which will be on the next slide. So as we transition, everything will be there. So if you fall a little behind, don't panic. Everything you need will be available. But I would say most folks are at the stage where we can start to play a little more with this vocabulary. So in our first section here, under life prokaryote in red, we're going to look at this word prokaryote or prokaryotic and what that actually means. Could folks remind, actually wait, we should do a special company. Gabriella, could you pull a name from our cup, please? Awesome. All right, so, kind sir, one of our questions from the last test was about the order at which organisms evolved on Earth. Did diversity appear spontaneously, or did simpler organisms evolve into more complex ones over time? Great, right? So what we're going to start with then is our simplest organisms, our prokaryotes. What this means is that you are a cell, pro meaning before, and karyote meaning egg. You are before egg. If you look at the cell of a prokaryote, it doesn't have its DNA bound inside a membrane. Its DNA is kind of this floating in the center of a prokaryote. So in that first box there with prokaryote, either above pro or below pro, or in parentheses after it, put the word before, meaning pro, and then egg representing karyote. So we're saying before egg. We're saying this very simple living thing, its cell has a less defined structure. And just like the evolution of any machine, right, you start with a very simple plan and then you add things later on. So we're thinking of this first upper corner here as our simplest organisms, the first things to evolve. And then for eukaryote, let's do the same thing. Where have folks seen the prefix EU before? All right, in Europe, the continent of Europe, right? And in Europe, you have a bunch of different countries, but geographically, they are all what? So they have like these boundaries and what? Are they separated by water or an island? Are they islands? No, they're together, right? So we can kind of think of our eukaryote, the prefix EU, meaning true or unified. And then once again, karyote, meaning egg. So we're saying that if we look at eukaryotic cells under a microscope, they have an egg-like appearance. They have a unified central organelle. And of course, what are we talking about there, folks? For those who remember their earlier biology. If we look at a cell and it's got this big ball in the center, it's the nucleus, right? So what we've got here are organisms that have a nucleus in their cells, our eukaryotes, and then our prokaryotes that lack a nucleus. They still have DNA, but it's just not safe in its little yolk. And since I've used the word yolk, you can think about this idea that a chicken egg is actually just a single cell, right? It's the female chicken's reproductive cell. The yolk is the nucleus, the albumin is the cytoplasm, which we'll talk more about in the next chapter. And we're good to go to transition to the next slide. Now, initially, biologists had this 5-kingdom method that we talked about on the homework part. Prokaryotes were considered one group. But what we've discovered with better technology is that prokaryotes are actually broken into 2 distinct domains. So in orange, we have the domain Archaea. And I realize with the light pouring through, it might be hard for some folks to see. So domain Archaea, so D-O-M-A-I-N, D-O-M-A-I-N, domain. And Archaea, A-R-C-A-R-C-H, A-R-C-H-A-E-A. So domain Archaea. So this is a very specific kind of prokaryote, a non-nucleus organism. And since we got at the top of the chart, we're going to say that this kind of thing evolved first. And for folks who remember our timeline activity, when life first kind of came about, what was the Earth like at that time? So we had like the solid ball of the Earth, right? What was the atmosphere and the oceans like? Was it, pleasant, comfortable, nice? What was it like in early Earth, primordial Earth? Anybody remember? Folks might remember from that reading that the early Earth was very hot. There was a lot of volcanic activity. There was a lot of gases, a lot of really potent gases in the air. Well, what gas is really present now that wasn't present back then? This was part of our activity we did in our book. Oxygen, right? There wasn't much oxygen. So these Archaea developed at that time when the Earth was very extreme in its environment. Now, eubacteria came a little later, and these were organisms that, like our prokaryotes, were single-celled, but they could live in less hostile environments. Generally, they live in or on a host or in an aquatic environment. And we'll talk more about that on Friday. And then, of course, we have our domain Eukarya. And as you can see here, we've got our domain Archaea in orange, our domain Eukarya in pink. If you don't have pink, you can just lightly shade it with your red. And then our domain Eukarya is all in blue. And of course, you can drag this down with an arrow rather than have to write domain Eukarya over and over again, right? But if you have, good for you. But the main distinction in our domains is that there are 2 types of prokaryotes. And generally speaking, eukaryotic cells have one kind of unifying principle, that they have a nucleus. All right, so I'm going to bop on to the next slide, and we're going to have some more volunteers with some stuff about us. All right, so the domain Archaea also carries over into the larger classification of kingdom Archaea. And what we're going to do with this is also write a key word, which we'll expand on in Friday's lecture. So as part of our kingdom Archaea, we're going to write the word extreme. And this will play out a little more later on. But underneath kingdom Archaea, we're going to write the word extreme. Yeah, Twan. Stays in orange, yeah. All right, specifically what makes Archaea distinct in the animal world is that they can survive in environments that are really hot or really acidic or really saline or have generally gases that are unstable, right? So they can survive in areas where they can just transform the chemicals in their environment into food, which again, we'll actually write about on Friday, but for now the word extreme will do just fine. So our kingdom Eubacteria, also a prokaryote, we'll just keep that in pink again. Our kingdom Eubacteria, these guys are the bacteria we commonly think about and interact with in our daily life. Ones that may or may not make us sick. The ones that live on our skin or in our intestines or all over the doorknob. So whenever we are applying an antibiotic, we're trying to kill off generally this kind, the kingdom U bacteria. All right, and then Hiram's going to pull it in from the cup, and that person's going to tell us anything they can think of or know about Animalia, something that we think of when we think of animals. Cool. Hi, Mina. All right, so let me know. What's a word or a code we could use? Something that is pretty similar to about all animals. All animals makes them different than plants or bacteria. So if I say to you animal, right, what's something you can think of that most or all animals have in common? And think general. Like, how do I know this is not an animal? What's something an animal does, this doesn't? Animals are mobile. Excellent. That's a really good one, right? All animals have the ability to move their body in some way, like snakes slither, fish swim, right? Lots of land animals walk. So for kingdom Animalia, it's about being mobile. M-O-B-I-L-E. Being mobile for kingdom Animalia. That's something that's not unique to them, because bacteria and protists can also swim and move. But generally speaking, we think of animals doing that thing. And then, Amina, if you could pick someone to tell us about fungi. What's something that, just generally speaking, we think of when we think of any kind of fungus, mold, yeast, mushrooms. Very nice. Sure. When you think of fungus, what do you think of? What's something that makes something a fungus? And some examples of fungus are yeasts and molds and mushrooms. What's something you think of as them maybe having in common? We do, and here as well.
That they all grow on something.
All right, they generally grow on something. That's a really good one. Yeah, Alvin, you want to add to that?
They decompose dead matter.
Great, right? They generally grow on things that are dead, right? So, like, you have some sliced up bread. We've long since killed that wheat. And then the fungus will grow on dead matter, right? Nice. All right, so why don't you pick someone for plants? The next person's going to tell us what they know about plants. Oh.
So it's
All right, great. So he's thinking the idea that plants generally have roots, right? Plants tend to be rooted to something. There are some aquatic plants that float, but a pretty common feature of land plants, right, is that they have some kind of root structure. And we're going to expand these things later on. We're just doing some teasers for now. And then, all right, and grab the clip. Thanks, guys. Got it. Thanks, Chief. And last up.
Jed.
She was here. That's Friday night.
Ashley.
Oh, Ashley, great. All right, so Ashley, obviously, I would expect you to know what a protista is, right? It's less common, but what about the prefix? We've seen that before, just today, as a matter of fact. What is pro mean?
Like,
Before, right? So, what we can say about these guys, protista, they're single-celled like bacteria. So these were maybe our first eukaryotes to evolve, based on some evolutionary evidence, right? So we call these our first eukaryotes, our protista. All right, so let's talk about what the rest of class is going to look like. So what we're going to be doing is 7 groups of you are going to be creating posters based on these specific kingdoms and what it means to be part of that kingdom. And the other groups are going to be creating posters based on specific organisms from those kingdoms. So let's let's do our assignments first, and then I'll explain all the qualifications of how this project will be scored. Assuming this decides to work. All right, if you are a table that has the KPCOFGS, you're going to be working on the computer today with samples from previous work. If you don't have that, you'll be doing stuff off of the book. So, but before we do that, got a little something nice for you. All right, so I'll put that other slide back up. But before we do that, let's have a little something nice.